Welcome to Sidebar, where you vote on the internet's biggest buttholes. Am I the butthole for being brutally honest about my experience having teen parents and embarrassing them? I'm 23 and I'm just starting college. I had to wait to go to college because I went to extremely shitty schools growing up and I got an awful education. I ended up working and going to community college just so I could save up and apply to a proper bachelor's program. Because of the current situation, I had to move back into my parents' home. My roommates work as nurses and I wasn't feeling safe. My parents had me when they were in high school. They tried their best, but teenagers have no business raising a kid. We struggled most of my childhood and they only ever became stable when I turned 17. I now have two younger siblings who are 5 and 2. We had a family Zoom call recently with my aunt, uncles and grandparents. We had the normal chit-chat. Then my aunt said she was so proud of my parents for stepping up and raising a successful child. This is where I may have been in butthole. I kinda scoffed/laughed when I heard my aunt say that. Then my aunt asked what's that supposed to mean, and I kind of just vented my entire issues of being raised by two immature teenagers who didn't know what they were doing, that I went to shitty schools and lived in shitty neighborhoods, and that I was borderline neglected. And now I'm 4 years behind other people my age. We just ended the Zoom call at that point. I never vocalized my issues before, but I did that night. I told them they were not good parents to me, and while I love them, I don't really respect them. And that frankly, I'm pretty bitter and jealous seeing my parents be better parents to my siblings than they ever were to me. My parents were very upset and they apologized. They told me they tried their best. I just locked myself in my room for the rest of the night and refused to talk to my parents. The next day, I decided to move back to my rented room, but my dad stopped me and was in tears as he apologized again. Now my parents are on this weird mission to make it all up to me, which apparently involves some sort of promise to pay my student loans. All this feels too little and too late for me, but I am still staying in their house because I have asthma and can't afford to get sick. Am I the butthole? Is the poster a butthole or not? Reddit says, "You are the butthole. Yes, they were young. No, they aren't perfect. If it was that bad, you wouldn't be home now. You were lucky they let you come back, and frankly you seem ungrateful. At your age they were caring for a child. You aren't even taking care of yourself independently." Am I the butthole for hacking my mom's Instagram to see if she violated NDA? I'm a nanny for a high-profile family. I signed a very extensive and strict NDA. Anyone directly involved in my life, mom, dad, sis, and husband, also signed an NDA. The nanny family recommended this, to talk about the job without getting into any legal trouble or putting them at risk. Recently ran into one of my parents' neighbors, Amber, at the park. Amber asked how the new job was going, then proceeded to ask specifics about how it must be working for a family where the parents are. Insert their jobs here. A direct violation of the NDA and something I could be fired and sued for. My dad isn't the sharing type, like at all, so I figured it was probably my mom. I asked her about it in a casual "Hey, how's Amber?" way. I said I ran into Amber at the park and that it was odd because she knew details about my job without me telling her. My mom simply shrugged and said, "That's funny. Maybe she Googled or saw something on social media." My dad and sister absolutely hate Amber. They essentially said heck would have to freeze over before they spoke to her willingly. My dad ended our convo where I asked him about it by saying, "The only thing I know about her is that her son just made partner at a law firm in New York and is making bank, and that's only because mom saw it on Instagram and told me about it." Right then, I knew my mom lied to me and it was her. She and Amber love to one-up each other with their children's success. And I also just landed a great new job. I asked my mom about it again and she told me that I was being dramatic, making stuff up, and that she would never do that to me. My mom doesn't text people, only DM on Instagram. I know her password, so logged in to check her messages. There was an extremely long DM to Amber where she shared their professions, children's names, ages, private school, general locations of their homes, how they pay really well, etc. Everything that we are legally not allowed to say, she said. I called her immediately and said that I logged into her DM and saw the message she sent Amber that was a violation. She started screaming at me about how she is supposed to be able to trust her daughter. She can't believe I hacked into her Instagram. That mothers should be allowed to brag about their children. And then she hung up. It has been a week without contact between the two of us. We used to speak every single day. I am starting to believe that maybe I'm the butthole here for violating her trust like that. My husband says if anyone violated trust here, it is her, and that I gave her ample opportunity to tell the truth before I intervened and sought out the truth myself. He constantly reminds me that they could sue us into the ground and fire me for endangering my nanny family's well-being. Because truthfully, Amber could easily be a psycho fan or sell the information to someone who is. So, am I the butthole? Is OP a butthole? Here is what Reddit thinks. Not the butthole. Your mom crossed the line and could end up costing you your job. I would be livid. Am I the butthole for getting a teacher fired over my son's head tattoo? My son, just turned 16, has had alopecia since he was young. For those of you who don't know, his hair falls out. It can progress with severe stress, and since elementary school, has been bullied mercilessly for it. The only real treatment was these injections into his scalp, which is, I'm sure you can imagine, or super painful. It was getting to the point that he'd become anxious closer to the doctor's visits, so I started looking at different options. I came across micropigmentation and suggested it to my son. He agreed that this seemed like the best option, and so for his birthday, I managed to get an appointment set up under his doctor's recommendation, which made it totally legal. We drove 2 hours out of our way and spent the weekend in a larger city to get this done. Since our town is fairly small, I don't know how to describe it. Even if it's buzzed, this stuff looks so real, and his confidence is just through the roof. He's no longer hiding under hats. He feels so confident with his new hair, and it's just really great to see. I'm honestly so glad that we made the decision, because now we can just move on from all of this. It's a huge weight lifted off of his shoulders every day. His school, however, thinks otherwise. He goes to a pretty strict Catholic school. Admittedly, I should have probably asked first, but I had flipped through the guidebook and saw nothing about tattoos in their policy. However, I got an angry email on Monday evening from a substitute teacher. She overheard my son explaining his procedure and felt compelled to tell me how this mutilation is illegal and unacceptable. I tried to explain, but she refused, and continued to tear into me and him over this, going so far as to call me an irresponsible father for allowing my son to get a head tattoo. She called him a bad example, and said that in no way is this acceptable under school rules. Well, here's where I may be the butthole. That admittedly peed me off a lot. So, I contacted not just the principal, but also a friend of mine who's on the board and the head of school, and forwarded them the conversation, with highlights, along with my own very strongly worded letter, and other emails documenting the times that my son experienced bullying at that school, with minimum, if any, repercussion to those involved. I'll admit I was angry, but I threatened to sue them for discrimination. Needless to say, this prompted a lot. Apparently the board is panicked about this, and the sub was fired. Word has gotten around due to the gravity of it all, and a few parents have called me the butthole, saying that I took the threats too far, as this substitute was not a normal part of the school, and I shouldn't have taken such an aggressive approach. Am I the butthole for getting this woman fired over this, and also for causing such a stir? Is OP a butthole? Here is what Reddit thinks. Not the butthole. She was way out of line, and the tattoo in question was a quality of life issue done with a doctor's approval. I would have done the same as you. Am I the butthole for telling my dad's wife I owe her nothing? I see her as needy, clingy, overly emotional, and annoying. She sees me as cold, mean, and selfish. She married my dad when I was 9 and forced herself into things I didn't want her in, and honestly, things she didn't belong in given the circumstances. And by that I mean I had known her for 3 months because she and my dad had a long-distance relationship, and we hadn't spent that much time together prior. The things she tried to force herself into were the traditions I had with my mom. She pushed her way to be there for every single one of them. My friendships, she would tell me who I should and shouldn't be friends with, and really push friendships on me when she hardly knew me. Then again, she heard more about me from my dad than I ever heard about her. She pushed herself into my grief. She always claimed I needed to talk and open up to her. Not just to anyone, but to her. She would demand it, follow me around trying to get it. And then she invited herself along to my therapy, which then invalidated therapy for me because I refused to participate with such a new person there. She was very much into the idea that our relationship came before other relationships, and so she would make me spend time with her over my friends because I was resistant to her. My dad was pretty quiet during it all, and honestly I didn't blame him enough back in the day. And now he knows how I feel about his part in it all. She would hug me without consent and squeeze so I couldn't push her off. She would try to kiss me and get annoyed if I blocked her, and she would hold my hand when I didn't like it. So the other night she told me she was tired of having me keep her out of my life. That she loved me and my dad and was a good stepmom and wife, and she deserved to be acknowledged, loved and appreciated for it. I didn't answer her, which made her more angry, and she snapped and she told me I was being mean to her for no reason. And then I told her that just because my dad loved her didn't mean I did or would, and I did not owe her my love or anything. I told her straight up I owed her nothing. I wanted to go deeper, but my dad stepped in and told me to apologize. This is when, for the second time, I told him he wasn't innocent in all of this either, and I let him know exactly where he fricked up. We're not talking now. I wanted to say so much more, and if my dad hadn't stepped in, more home truths would have come from me. Am I the butthole? I'm 17, turning 18 in less than 2 weeks. She sees everything different. So does my dad. Did OP act like a butthole? Here's what Reddit thinks. Not the butthole. Forcing herself into your therapy sessions? That's totally fucked up. What did the therapist say about that? Tell both of them this: you might have been willing to build trust and a familial relationship with her, but you were never given a chance. She bulldozed her way into your life, started demanding your affection and your time and demanding you love and trust her as a mother when you barely knew her and missed your actual mom. It didn't feel like love, it felt like an attack, and some of her actions border on downright abuse. You cannot be forced to love someone. You understand she wanted a relationship, but she needs to understand trust and love are earned, not demanded. And your dad needs to understand that, even though he loves her, protecting you should have been his first priority. He allowed her to force herself on you, and did nothing about it. You're happy he found love, but he needs to understand his wonderful new family was a living nightmare for you because you had no privacy, even at therapy. Finally, here's our headline story of the day. Am I the butthole that I made my husband pay all the vet bills because he blamed his stinky farts on the dog and caused unnecessary stress? We have a dog, Jerry. He's an absolute sweetheart. He has such a sweet and gentle disposition, and he doesn't have an unkind bone in his body. I love him dearly. A month ago, my husband, Jerry, and I were eating dinner when suddenly I smelled something really disgusting. My husband instantly made a face, so I knew it wasn't just me. TBH, I am pregnant, and my sense of smell has been a little sensitive in this time. I couldn't stand the smell and left the room. Later in bed, my husband told me the dog farted. You guys, the smell was unbelievable. It honestly smelled a little like rotten eggs. I thought it was a one-off because the dog does fart, as do we, but it's never been this bad. Over the next week, the smell would come again and again at random times. I lit candles, incense, nothing worked. This whole time I thought it was the dog and said, okay, frick it. I'm taking him to the vet. A fart this stinky isn't normal. Through all this, my husband kept silent. My vet recommended a diet change for the dog, so I changed the diet, but the stink continued. I was losing my goddamn mind, and my husband still kept his mouth shut. The vet was extremely confused and ordered a bunch of tests that cost a lot. All the tests showed that the dog was fine. I'm losing my mind here. My anxiety started kicking in. What if there's something wrong with him? What if we lose him? I'm so stressed out. It all came to a breaking point and I burst into tears. Had a full-on meltdown about losing Jerry, and then you have to understand this nonsense has been going on for 5 weeks. My husband confesses that the farts weren't the dog but were him. Y'all, I lost it. I kicked him out of the house. He went to stay with his friends. All of our friends are on my side. To be clear, I didn't mind he lied in the moment, but he knew we were going to the vet. The vet was confused. He even went to the vet appointments with me. It takes him a full-on panic attack and mental breakdown to say the truth. His mother, who normally thinks the sun shines out his arse, is on my side as well. She called him, in no uncertain terms, an idiot. I let him back into the house, of course, after I cooled down. He went to the doctor about his farts and was recommended a diet change as well. I told him in no uncertain terms that he has to pay me back my half of the vet bills out of his savings/fund money, and the household budget was not made to accommodate his bulls ******. He's agreed but isn't really happy about it. I don't particularly care about his happiness right now, to be honest. I'm not talking to him at all, but I want to know if I'm being fair by asking him to pay me back or if I'm taking it too far. Too angry to be rational right now. Is OP a butthole? Music with Roxanne has a clear verdict. NEA, that was so cruel to the dog. How many times did the vet draw blood for these tests? And man, stressing out your pregnant wife for no reason is just putting your baby at risk. He should pay all of the vet costs. He needs to grow himself some maturity before the baby gets here. Now it's your time to vote on the buttholeness of the headline story. Is the poster a butthole? Let us hear your thoughts. Go to the pinned comment under this video. Please hit the thumbs up on the reply of YDA. You are the butthole if you think the OP could have been nicer. Or press thumbs up on the reply saying NTA. Not the butthole if you are on the same side as OP. Feel free to leave your opinion and reason why you voted for the option you did in the comments section. And join the discussion. For more buttholes, subscribe to Sidebar.